The sleeper be with you, stranger. I'm here to guide you onto the right path.
What is going on, everyone? My name is NZ Shade, and this is Game Dev Adventures. If you play games for long enough, you'll eventually encounter a moment in a game that leaves you absolutely floored. The sort of moment that ingrains itself in your memory and makes you reconsider the way you think about games. About a week ago, I had a moment like this while playing Gothic. It was so special that I knew it had to be the topic of my next video. I usually finish games before I talk about them on the channel, but I want to discuss this one while it's still fresh in my mind. Gothic is a third-person action role-playing game that has a very vocal group of supporters. I decided to pick it up after seeing Merlin Play's video declaring it to be the best action RPG ever, in his opinion. It's a bold claim, but he has a pretty compelling argument, and a large amount of support from both his fans and other YouTubers. I was intrigued. I started playing the game, and after an hour and a half, came to the moment that I want to tell you about. The moment in question is when I followed Parvez from the old camp to the swamp camp. I know it may sound ridiculous. Am I really going to gush for 8 to 12 minutes in this video about following an NPC from one location to another? Well, I am, because every single game mechanic and event up to that point served to make this interaction 10 times more meaningful than it would be in almost any other RPG. Tons of different decisions crafted a world where this moment had weight. In this video, I'm going to break down why following the ball to the swamp camp was such an impactful moment, and what other RPG developers can learn from this to make their games more immersive. This video will contain spoilers, but only for the first couple hours of the game. I'll talk about things up to arriving at the swamp camp, but nothing else. First, we have to talk about the beginning of the game, and the events that lead up to the moment in question, because the moment itself wouldn't be able to stand on its own without the events preceding it. It's special because of how it fits into the larger picture. The first thing that happens in Gothic is you're thrown into the colony and knocked out by the first people that find you. You're saved from a more vicious beating by Diego, who tells those guys to leave you alone. But Diego isn't exactly your friend. He's a recruiter, and he doesn't even care to find out your name. He just wants you to come to the old camp and join the Baron. The nicest thing he does for you is not steal a scroll that you need to deliver to the mages, but only because it isn't worth anything to him. This implies that he would have taken it from you if it had been in his interest. At this point, I'm not a fan of the old camp. I'm not the type to ally with the most dominant faction in any game, and these guys run like a corporation, profiting off their exploited miners in order to live the easy life. I follow Diego to the old camp, but only because it's the closest place to find safety. I certainly don't intend on staying. Once I get to the camp, people are about as nice as I would expect from my previous interactions. One resident tells me I'm an idiot when I can't get his sword, and a guard tries to get me to pay protection, which I can't afford. I want to move on and find another camp, but the game doesn't make it easy. I don't have a clue where anything is, and I'm so weak that any creature is a threat. I try to explore down a path in front of the camp, but I'm chased by scavengers. I may have been able to take them out, but it would have been close, so I'm relieved to be saved by a couple guards standing watch a ways down the road. They tell me that the wilds past the gate are really dangerous, so I turn around and head back to the camp, feeling stuck. I find a guy who has a map to sell, and manage to scrape together just enough money to buy it, selling the herbs and berries I have gathered. At first, this feels like a huge victory, but as I look at the map, I realize it won't be much help. The map doesn't make it obvious where important places are, and I'm too weak to travel alone anyway. And this, my good listeners, is where I meet Parvez. I'm broke, weak, lost, and stuck. And the game knows it. Everything so far has been designed to put me in this position. Monsters are balanced to give you a really hard time without gear or levels. The map is intentionally vague to make it harder on new players who don't know basic information about the colony's layout. And better gear is outrageously expensive compared to the small amounts you can make from foraging for supplies. Gothic wants you to get frustrated and desperate, and this is exactly how I felt when I met Baal Parvez. The Baal tells me about the swamp camp, a small group of worshippers who pray to their god, the Sleeper, for salvation. He tells me that they need more worshippers to pray during a big ceremony, and wants me to come with him. Just like Diego, he's a recruiter, and he wants me to come with him for his own reasons. But at this point, I'm just desperate enough to agree, even if I'm at this point not sure that I can trust him. I didn't feel like the Baal was the optimal solution, but he offered me a way out of the old camp, so I took it. The decision to go with Parvez felt far more real than most decisions I make in RPGs. In most games, I'm self-sufficient enough to do what I want and go where I please. I may choose to work with someone on something, but it's never really out of necessity. I never really need anyone's help. But I needed the Baal's help, and that was the first thing that made the trip so special. Next, let's talk about the trip itself. Traveling with the Baal couldn't be more different from traveling alone. He's a proficient fighter and easily takes down large groups of monsters that would tear me apart in seconds. We travel over a bridge, past a waterfall, and through the forest, never in fear of the creatures that lie in wait. The journey is a massive opportunity for my character to learn and gather resources. Parvez does a majority of the fighting, but I still gain experience points when he defeats a creature. We pause occasionally so I can gather plants and meat, and I collect all sorts of new things that I haven't seen before. Again, this is in stark contrast to traveling alone. Before, getting experience was incredibly slow and dangerous, and there was only so much I could forage for before I felt unsafe. The trip made me feel like a student who had an expert to teach me the basics. I was learning how to fight by watching Parvez, and he was helping me get settled with a pack full of valuables. Even though no words were spoken, the trip characterizes Parvez as a decent guy who actually wants to help a newcomer like me. This is best illustrated by comparing his actions with those of Diego. Diego never offers to take me to the old camp. He just says that that's where you should go. Sure, you can follow him, but he won't wait for you. When I started the game, I paused in this clearing to find a weapon, learn to equip it, and find some basic supplies. At this point, Diego had just wandered off without me. Parvez, on the other hand, risks life and limb to keep me safe in the wild, and waits patiently while I gather mushrooms and herbs. Through these subtle differences in AI, the game tells me everything I need to know about these two characters. Last, let's talk about the end of the trip. I arrive at the swamp camp, and Parvez explains that he needs to go back to bring more people. He heads back into the woods, and I'm on my own again. I may have gotten away from the old camp, but I'm no less stuck than I was before. Now, I'm just stuck somewhere else. This is fantastic, because it gives my decision weight. I didn't just go to the swamp camp. I committed to a voyage, and I don't know where or when I'll be able to leave. This is possible because the game doesn't simply let you fast travel to places you've been, like so many games do today. If you want to get somewhere, you need to be able to walk, and that allows you to get stuck, which makes the game feel real and complex. The game also sells the journey you've made, with a drastic change in scenery. As I enter the camp, I'm greeted by a warm pink haze that settles over the swamp and the huts. It's gorgeous, and it reminds me of how far I've come from the tall, gray structures of the old camp. As I take my first lap around the swamp, I realize that I have a lot to learn about what's going on here, and that I'm in for a whole new adventure. The journey from the old camp to the swamp camp is a deep and well-crafted event that does so many things right, and leans on so many different systems. The player's journey is set up by an early game that leaves you feeling frustrated, underpowered, and unwelcomed. The journey itself is kickstarted by a curiosity of the world and a desire to overcome the world's boundaries. During the journey, you experience compassion, safety, knowledge, and growth. And at the end, you're left with a whole new environment and the realization that you're just as stuck as you were before. I'm just beginning to experience Gothic, and I can already see why it's considered a role-playing masterpiece. As I continue my adventure, I'll keep making videos about it, analyzing what I see and do along the way. Maybe I'll make a video about my next favorite moment, or maybe I'll talk about the game in a whole new way. If you're interested in more Gothic analysis, or just video game analysis in general, then consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching.